There's some of you out there who may have heard a few rumbles in the jungle about the US dollar collapsing and things like that. As the entire world knows, the economy in the States isn't very good at the moment. But from the perspective of some of the things we're hearing over here, and this is not just sort of, here we go, back on the rumour mill with a conspiracy theorist. I'm opening the newspaper to see the writings of people that I hear on the radio who are well-renowned financial analysts. The Barefoot Investor is the one I'm talking about here. One of his articles, he said that at the moment the stock exchange is looking gangbusters. This is as of March 2013. And, you know, it looks great. It's higher than it's been since before the collapse in '08. And apparently that's attributed to something called the Great Rotation. People, well, investors more specifically, are pulling out of bonds and investing in company shares, and that's why the share price is roaring, because they're dropping the government bonds, they've lost confidence in governments, and they're all trying to buy shares at once, so that has pushed the share price up purely because of the lack of supply and the exceedingly high demand for those shares. But having said that, it may give the impression that things are all dandy and they're on the way back. That couldn't actually be further from the truth. He had more to mention in this article that basically nothing has changed. The United States has kicked its debt can down the road for a few more months. It is printing money that it has little to no hope of repaying. And quite simply, it's bankrupt. And you sort of think, well, maybe they'll default. Well, I don't really see it happening. I see there's two scenarios, and I believe it'll actually be a combination of the both. The dollar can crash. There'll be what there has happened so many, probably, you know, almost 100 times before. There's been a point where the tide turns, where the herd stampedes, where everybody just sort of stops, and then a few people get the spooks up and start running, and then the fear runs through the market, and bang, everybody's trying to get out. That will cause a dollar crash. I don't believe that that's just going to happen tomorrow. What I do believe is it'll be a combination of that and what I'm about to say. And what I'm about to say is they will continue to water down the value of the currency by printing more money, doing more bailouts, more quantitative easing, and more crap like that. And basically, what I believe will happen is they'll continue to do that, and that'll go on, and on and on and on, till the point that the inflation is so bad, it might be 20% a year, or something like that, and there will be a point where the inflation gets that bad that there will be a change in the mind of people, and the herd will stampede and everybody will turn around, and that's when the dollar will crash. It may take you 5 years, but I wouldn't be terribly surprised, I could almost guarantee it, I reckon, that within the next 7 years it's going to be down the drain, but more likely within the next 5 years, sometime in the next 5 years, it'll be sunk. There'll be a dollar crash. And how that'll happen is more bailouts, more quantitative easing, inflation, and there'll be some point where it's the Chinese, it's someone who is a large investor, or even a couple of foreign banks will decide, we're sick of this. This inflation is just ridiculous. We've had a gut full of all this. We're losing everything we make just due to inflation. And they'll throw the towel in and all pull out their stops, and a few others will pull out their stops, and the next thing everybody will pull out, and she'll just go straight to the bottom like a blimmin' stone. And yeah, you know, essentially I see it very similar to the way Russia's gone. You got a whole bunch of people who, no matter what, they won't change their course of action. They don't listen to the people. They don't think outside the box. They don't think along the lines of solid currency. They're just doing the same thing they've done before. They're absolutely adamant that it's going to work. You know, some of these people have almost got the mentality that if they make something law, it will work. And if they made a law that said gravity didn't exist, then gravity just would cease to exist. But they're so caught up that they run the show that there's simple things like the fact that people won't buy bonds, like the fact that you've got to get the other side to cooperate in this whole circus of financial wizardry by buying your bonds, by doing all this stuff. And if you can't get them to cooperate, it doesn't matter how big and powerful you think you are. If the other side does not have confidence in your currency, the game's lost. It's finished. And these people have done the same thing, you know, as you've seen, the bailouts, quantitative easing 1, 2, 3 plus with a, you know, open-ended. You know, and they're not going to change their tack on the way they do it because they're stuck in that mindset. And it's a bit like the old communists, you know, they were stuck in the mindset that the communist way is the proper way, this, that and the other, and they stuck on that way and they kept running that path, and they ran it until it crashed into the ground. Or it was obvious that it was about to completely hit the deck. And these sort of bailout economic mentality will continue with these people who are on this path and are going to follow that path no matter what anybody says, because they're right and we run the country and this is the way it is and we're the experts, so don't tell us. And they're going to keep going down that path until they sink it. So, although I'm not a prepper, I'll tell you what, you're a lot of the way there if you are. You know, I do see things that preppers miss that I think you should be able to see that, but if you haven't literally had to live in a situation after a crash, you might not see all the holes. And my recommendation to preppers is to go talk to people who lived in financial crashes. Try someone from the former Yugoslavia. Try someone from, you know, Sarajevo, places like that, and ask them what it's like to live under an economic crash. And, you know, you may pick up on a few things you missed, but don't ignore it, because you can stick your head in the sand like a stuck-up yuppie, like some of these arrogant blooming communists, and the whole lot will roll you. You'll be sunk. You'll be living like the Russians are now if you don't take it into account, you know. You'll be out there living hand to mouth, basically. I've heard of Russians that have had 3 part-time jobs and still can't literally pay just basic bills and basic food costs. You know, that was the case back when the ruble inflation was going, not necessarily now, but back in the 90s, yes, that was the case with some of them. And they had decent jobs too, but just could never seem to make ends meet because of the massive inflation. So yeah, that's just a bit of food for thought on economics.